Chapter 43 The Bus and the Willow. When the map drove off, I crawled beneath the railing and made my way down the hill toward the bus. In the east, the sky was smoky gray, and I was glad for the approaching dawn. In the year and a half since the trail was hacked out, the brush had begun to grow back, wet with dew. Straggly branches slapped and scratched at my legs and hid uneven ground so that several times I tripped, tumbling and sliding downwards. The bus lay on its side like an old, sick horse, its broken headlights staring out mournfully into the surrounding trees. Most of the huge rubber tires were punctured and grotesquely twisted on their axles. I climbed up onto the bus's side, hoping to make my way down to an open window. But there were two enormous gashes torn into the side, and the jagged metal was peeled back like a sardine tin. Through a smashed window behind the driver's seat, I uh, could see jumbled mess of twisted seats and chunks of foam rubber. Everything was dusted over with fizzy green mold. I had imagined that I would drop through a window and walk down the aisle, but there was no space inside to move. I had wanted to score every inch of the bus, looking for something, anything that might be familiar. I climbed back down off the bus and walked all the way around it. Sticking out from beneath the side of the bus was a man's boot, it, an open gash in the side of it revealing that, thankfully, there was no foot inside. By now, the sky was pale pink, and it was easier to find the uphill trail, but harder going as it was a steep incline. What, sorry, but harder going as it was a steep incline. By the time I reached the top, I was muddy and scratched from head to toe. It wasn't until I crawled beneath the railing that I noticed the car parked behind Gramps' red Corvette, or Chevrolet. It was the sheriff. He was talking on his radio when he saw me and he motioned for his deputy to get out. The deputy said, "We were just about to come down there after you. We saw you up on the top of the bus. You kids ought to know better. What were you doing down there at this time of day, anyway?" Before I could answer, the sheriff climbed out of his car. He settled his gray hat and on his head and shifted his holster. "Where are the others?" he said. "There aren't any others," I said. "Who brought you up here?" "I brought myself." "Whose car is this?" "My grandfather's." "And where is he?" The sheriff glanced to the left and right, as if Gramps might be hiding in the bushes. "He's in Coeur d'Alene." The sheriff said, "I beg your pardon?" So I told him about Graham and about how Gramps had to stay with her and about how I had driven from Coeur d'Alene very carefully. The sheriff said, "Now let me get this straight." And he repeated everything I said, ending with, "And you're telling me that you drove from Coeur d'Alene to this spot on this hill all by yourself?" "Extensively carefully," I said. "My Gramps taught me how to drive, and he taught me to drive extensively carefully." The sheriff looked at the deputy and said, "I'm afraid to ask this young lady exactly how old she is. Why don't you ask her?" The deputy said, "How old are you?" I told him. The sheriff gave me a thumpingly stern look and said, "I don't suppose you would mind telling me exactly what was so all fired important that you couldn't wait for someone with a legitimate driver's license to bring you to the fair city of Lewiston." And so I told him all the rest. When I had finished, he returned to his car and talked on the radio some more. Then he told me to get in his car and he told the deputy to follow in Gramps' car. I thought the sheriff was probably going to put me in jail. It wasn't the thought of jail that bothered me so much. It was knowing that I was this close and might not be able to do what I had come to do. It was knowing that I needed to get back to Graham. He did not take me to jail, however. He drove across the bridge into Lewiston and on through the city and up a hill. He drove into Longwood, stopped at the caretaker's house, and went inside. Behind us was the deputy in Gramps' car. The caretaker came out, pointed off to the right, and the sheriff got back in the car and drove off in that direction. It was a pleasant place. The Snake River curved behind this section, and tall, full-leaved trees grew here and there across the lawn. The sheriff parked the car and led me up a path toward the river, and there, on a little hill overlooking the river and the valley, was my mother's grave.